Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I'm Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Stormslord. He's beautiful.
How's it going?
There. Oh, I'm so worried. So worried. He's here. We also got Alpha Soul.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
And the one, the only Crowjack.
I don't know about you three, but I had the serving lady get me a drink. I think she prefers me over you three.
What magic is
Probably
this?
does.
No, like
Can't
seriously.
tell you it's a secret. It's a secret.
There's some serious magic going on because he's holding up nothing in the air. What is this? Anyway, guys, we got a fun show planned for you guys. Of course, there's some news coming out of Intrepid Studios with Margaret hitting the ground running and doing a couple Reddit AMAs as well as a quick Q&A from a lot of the questions that have been floating around the Ashes of Creation community. And of course, we are going to be going into more progression talk. This time talking about everyone's favorite subject, shinies. AKA shinies. Everyone wants the shinies, and that's all that really matters in most cases. But before we jump into that, of course, we got to give a shout out to our amazing supporters over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network, as well as the people who support us here at twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network with your subs each and every month. It's amazing. It helps us keep the metaphorical torches lit and bringing you guys the shows you love each and every week. Much love for you guys. We also had a new iTunes review. Ooh. Oh, yeah. I actually had the foresight to bring it up this time. Great podcast, 5 stars from Missy XOXO, because there's a bunch of Y's in there. So, I recovered my iTunes account from many years ago just to write a review for this podcast. Not a big fan of Apple. These guys are great to listen to, fresh ideas about what this game could and should be, and keeps you up to date on all things Ashes. Keep going, guys. Hope to see you in Vera. Much love. Pip Dash. That's their name. So Mizzy XOXO is also Pip Dash. Thank you so much for that. That really does help. That lets people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. And also helps people find us more easily on iTunes because it makes our podcast show up in places it normally wouldn't be, like in your ear holes. Anyway, guys, let's go ahead and jump right on into this. I know probably the big news is tomorrow the test is coming back.
I'm so excited.
Absolutely.
I know it's not the MMO that we want, but it's something. And right now, I'm starving for anything.
I think a lot of people are. And despite the fact that I hate battle royales, I can honestly say when it went offline, I was like, "Aw."
I know. I'm like, now what am I going to play?
Well, yeah. A lot of people in our guild, we were doing that together a lot, just having fun, chatting, and playing the Battle Royale. So even though Battle Royale may not be our favorite thing, socializing while doing it was still something that was cool. And then when it's gone, we're all sitting there going, all right, well, now what do we do? In our case, I jumped into BDO, and now I can't ever sleep ever.
Can't stop.
There's been so many nights where I was like, I'm getting off by 11. I look down at the clock, or my wife comes, you know how late it is? Oh, it's only like 10:30. 1:30. Yeah. So let's fill people in here. We got the new test, which I actually was wrong on because I know some people were asking me in Discord, and I was under the impression that this was still going to be closed testing only for the backers, but it's completely open.
Can you imagine, right? When it was closed testing, we didn't really have very many people playing because, again, everyone kickstarted an MMO, not a Battle Royale. So opening it up, you're going to at least have enough people to test the servers, stress test the servers, etc. So it's the only choice they have.
Right. And for those of you watching us live over on Twitch, just note that on the 11th, they're doing a live stream, and they will be giving away alpha keys for the MMO alpha.
Which is crazy. That's the only way to get them right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because you
insane.
can't. They
Nope.
took the Intrepid pack away, which you could actually still get Alpha 1. So the only way to actually get them is via the live streams.
Yeah, the only thing you can buy in the store is Alpha 2, and that costs like 300 plus. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the Intrepid pack was, what, $500 when it was out? Something like that?
Yep.
But that actually put it in line with most of the people in Kickstarter, because where did Alpha 1 kick in? Was it 500 or was it less than that? I can't even remember now. Maybe
was it the what was that?
I think it was the Braver of Worlds package.
The Braver, I think, right?
Yeah,
500.
originally it was a little cheaper than that. But
well,
yeah,
if you got the
once it got
early
moving.
bird, but the original thing
Yeah.
was 500 or whatever. So it's in line with what people paid during the Kickstarter to get into Alpha 1. So, that's a thing. Here's a question that I really don't know, and I know I've asked this in chat, and I'm hoping tomorrow they'll answer this. I'm curious if progression is going to be kept during the test.
Which progression?
Our account
legendary
progression,
path.
legendary path, items that we
question.
get.
Steven had confirmed that before, as he was taking down the servers before. Yeah, he confirmed that. It's keeping.
It
It
is.
is kept, but
Yeah.
this weekend, can we further progress it?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
it is
know.
open.
I don't know if the people who have access, or like the free, what is it, legendary path? I don't know if that's going to be active or if
Good question.
that's going in. But I do know that all the progression and everything that actually happens continues on and is permanent basically and goes through. So
Now, if it was a closed test, that would kind of be feel bad moment, but it's an open test. So yeah, you're right. It's actually okay that progression does continue, but you're right. Do we as Kickstarter backers have access to our free legendary path or not? I've been waiting. I've not wanted to buy the Embers to buy it.
I didn't get it as of the last time before the servers went offline.
Yeah, same here.
And from
Didn't somebody in this foursome here get the legendary path?
I
for free?
believe that's true.
I believe that's true. Some
yeah,
lucky
I did.
person.
It wasn't me.
Well, no. So I didn't get it. I think Storm's got it, right?
Storm's got it.
Yeah, Storm's got it. I bought it, and I just requested a refund after that. But yeah,
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I fought with the idea of it, but I was like, I didn't.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well,
From my
I
perspective,
reasoned,
no, go ahead.
so I was just gonna say I reasoned that they're gonna refund it anyway, and I'll end up using those embers anyway. It's not like those $10 is gonna go to waste. So I'm just like, whatever.
I mean, to be frank, it's only $10. You spend more than that for a Starbucks coffee, so whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Who cares?
From my perspective, though, I'm going to be streaming this game so much that I will hit 50 with or without, buying it earlier, just waiting for it. It's not going to matter to me personally. So,
I think for me, the biggest thing is, and this is kind of straying into more personal opinion, it was the experience would have been nice just because I don't enjoy Battle Royale. Had they had Castle Sieges and Horde mode, I would have been okay. Like, I'd have been in the same boat as you. I'll probably play those modes a lot. I just don't care for the Battle Royale. I'm not saying I don't care for it. I shouldn't even say that because
if you
it
had a
is
priority
fun.
list, it's probably number 3.
Yes.
For you. Even without trying Castle Siege or Horde mode, I imagine you'd have it at number 3.
Yeah. It's fun to watch, and sometimes it's definitely fun to play, but it's not something that I could play a ton of all the time. And
There's a handful of streamers for the Battle Royale who are very good at the game. D Phantom actually is a very good player at the game. Watching him land his hits, land his shots, and his decision making, you're right, it's very entertaining to watch. So some people may enjoy playing it, some people may enjoy watching it, but you're absolutely correct. I'm pumped to get my hands on Castle Siege and Horde mode. That's going to be so much fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's because those, once again, will be more reminiscent of activities that we will be doing within the MMORPG. All right. Margaret went over and braved the Reddit area, which, to be frank, I mean, she's going to have a lot of cleanup to do. I always used to look at Reddit as the big bad cesspool. And yet, I think I'd rather hang out in the Reddit than the Discord. So, way to go, Ash's Discord. You succeeded and make me go, Reddit's not that bad.
Yeah.
No one else has been able to do that, so way to go. Anyway, an AMA was held, so we got to know her, for those of us who weren't there before. I like that she came up and summarized some of the stuff she's going to be doing, which we'll go over. It wasn't really news to me because she was awesome enough to actually respond to last week's episode because we had talked about her joining the team, and she gave us essentially what her job description is. So this is just reutterance for us, but she's going to be working on setting up branding guidelines for Intrepid Studios, Ashes of Creation and Apocalypse. That may not sound very exciting, but that is very important.
It's very important.
Very important.
Which colors, which font, what shapes, what sizes, etc. That's so important.
Just a random thought now that you said font. I'm actually curious if they're going to continue to use the font that's here now because it's a very open font. It's like available in a free font. I wonder if they're going to actually pay someone to create a custom font.
I'm not super fond of the font they use for the in-game UI. It's a little difficult to read on a quick pass. It requires you to like really focus on it. So hopefully they clean that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Organizing, cleaning up Intrepid's social media channels and types of content that will be delivered from. This includes the following: Discord, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, forums, and the website. She's a huge believer that all information should funnel from the website and forums out to social. Let's stop there real quick. A big upside that we've already seen, the news that came out for the... Help me out here. The testing came from the website first.
Yes.
She had a forum post written first. And that was really cool. Like, to actually see the website being used, because for such a long time, and we've already said last episode how much of an uptick that we've seen with the use of Twitter to pretty much copy everything that was in Discord out. That was a big step for me in terms of communication because I just don't want to go into the Discord. So
you remember how we talked about in previous podcasts about streamlining the message, about having the message through one filter, through one funnel, through one lens?
Yep.
Using the website as the spot to get all your information and then branching out from there is a perfect way of doing that. One central source. You want your answer, you go to the source. You can't find it there. Well, then there is no answer yet.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really helpful. More controversy being stirred up about Reddit, being that Reddit is primarily run by the community. I'm still seeing people that are angry that Intrepid is running the Reddit.
Did we not read that she was hoping to give it more community control as opposed to...
Some community control, but I know they're still going to keep it.
They're still going to own it. Yeah, yeah. I see where the concern is for long term. Because obviously, there's been companies in the past who have, owned their Reddits and have been pretty much ban hammers against anything negative that was said. But, to the point, we haven't seen what they will do because they haven't really done anything with Reddit. So, I'm just kind of on the middle ground right now.
Right. I honestly, it's not the first time I've seen it. Almost a lot of the newer games run their own Reddits. The only Reddits that are technically community-based are the Reddits that started when a game's already been out. Like, WoW doesn't run its Reddit, but WoW was out before Reddit was really a thing, so they didn't really care. And at this point, they still don't care. It's whatever. So, everything else is kind of... Yeah, I don't know why it's still a thing. Anyway, and working with our producers set up a content roadmap for the next 6 months in order to determine our schedule accordingly.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
That's good. Absolutely.
More transparency.
And actually going into it, one of the things I look forward to every year, which I still haven't seen from ZOS, ZeniMax Online Studios, is the Road Ahead articles from Matt Fire for ESO.
Yeah.
He essentially outlines, sometimes in vague, but outlines what's coming all the next year.
Yeah.
It may not be like he normally doesn't tell us what each thing's going to be in strict detail, because he likes a little bit of hype for when you're getting close to releasing it, but he does tell us what's coming out. Hey, we got a chapter coming out. We're going to be working on this content stuff here for another, quality of life. Expect a dungeon DLC. And then he leaves the lore side of it hidden until launch. That way we're all surprised. But we know what's coming in the next year. So having a nice roadmap for content will be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
I wonder how vague or specific the roadmap is going to be in terms of dates. Is it going to be days? Is it going to be months? Is it going to be quarters? I wonder how specific they're going to go.
I mean, we only have 1 year, right? So
Yeah.
I guess that they'll give us like a general like month, maybe quarters, like early, early Q2 or something like that.
Yeah, they'll probably stick
Somewhere.
with quarters.
That's the
Yeah.
only safe thing you can do. You really shouldn't go with any further dates.
Not when you don't know the cost. You don't know what it's going to be. You really gotta be careful with that.
They learned it with this entire
Yep.
APOC
Sure
debacle. The realizing that their website architecture, the back end architecture of the servers was not holding up.
And the number of times Steven would say a date or a time or a time frame and then had to skip past that and push past back and all the flack he was getting on Discord for it.
Yeah.
So you need to be a bit more vague to allow for that flexibility. You're right.
Right. And yeah, because you can always essentially walk it back without as much hate, if you will.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah, and hopefully they're adding contingency too. I think that by going through what they did with that, I would think they're going to add some contingency to their dates.
Yeah, you definitely need to. And the one thing I think they need to address sooner than later is this whole before 2020 thing.
Well,
And
yeah.
I know.
Saying,
Well,
that's the goal.
it's
Well,
getting
the
close.
goal
it can be
over
a
and over.
goal, but you should set your players up. We're all fans of the show, or not of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, you better all be fans of the show. We're all fans of the game. We want it to succeed. But as some of us being developers ourselves, you need to set that expectation. People are like, we're going to get this in our hands before 2020.
No, there's a reasonable expectation that's going to bleed into 2020 and beyond.
Oh, yeah. And that's
That's very
acceptable if you let us know, hey, we're getting closer. I know they may wait to see how close they can get, but I really do feel like they need to address that, or at least put the bug in people's ears that, hey, there may be something that may push us
Well,
back.
so I was having this exact same conversation. I genuinely think that we should probably wait until we get into the Alpha 1 to kind of see where you are, because we genuinely don't know what their pipeline is, how genuinely far along advanced that they are, right?
Yeah, we have nothing to use as a litmus test, as a barometer to get a feel for where they're at.
Right. Except for our past experience with how these things generally go. Everything else with our past experience is basically saying there's no freaking way they can get this out in a year, right? Or within that time frame, but we have very little information to go on. So
You are very correct on that. Yeah, I agree. As testing goes on, they need to start updating that timeline. And some other games, they may wait a couple months before it's supposed to be released to push it back, or in the case of like Atlas, about 3 hours before it's supposed to launch to push it back.
If that long.
I always bring Atlas up so people can actually look at Ashes and go, well, at least it's not Atlas. Give people perspective on where this is coming. But
and the funny thing was, people are using it to bash Ashes. They're like, look at this game Atlas. It was launched right now, and now it's coming out. So,
is it really?
See how that turned out.
Is it really?
Is it really?
Is it playable? I'd argue that. Anyway, and given the fact it's almost a complete rip of Arc, it's technically had 8 years of development times to take that into account as well. Anyway, going back into this, constructing playtest schedules and feedback loops in order to make sure that we're getting the most out of our test and feedback. I noticed they've already set up a
form?
Not a form. It's essentially a Zendesk, a help desk that you can submit errors to for testing. That'll be helpful as well. Working with marketing team to ensure that they're aware of our content schedule and that things we would like to address through these mediums, and building the community team. So they'll be adding more people to the community team over time. That's cool. Of course, we'll have a link in the description of the podcast below. So if you are listening to it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, it'll be in the description. And again, in our YouTube video, there's a link on the bottom of it. It will take you to our website that has all the links, because YouTube hates hyperlinks. And I'm too lazy to re-add them all back in. So anyway, moving on to the next bit. We've got a Q&A that was done on January 9th, which was pretty cool. writing down a few things that were kind of out and about in the community. And did anyone have any highlights from this? I wouldn't want to go through it word for word. We have a better discussion to go through, but there were a handful of gems that I saw. Did anyone else have any?
Overall, like I was saying to you guys in the pre-show, it was mostly them saying, we're aware of all of these questions you have regarding the website, this, that, and the other thing, and we're working on all of them. But in terms of gems, there are a handful. I'm glad you found a couple. The fact that they want to have patch notes for us ASAP is very exciting. I've been itching for patch notes. I want to know what changes are doing, how much damage does this have, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of cool. And more vlogs is actually very exciting for me. I want to see more behind the scenes kind of vlog stuff. That's very cool.
And vlogs may also refer to the elusive nodes 3 as well. Those things that we can show off. I still show off nodes 1 and 2. I watch them probably once a week just because I like the music that's playing.
It maintains the hype.
Steven has this nice voice. I like to listen to it. I do. Sometimes I put them in my ear before I go to bed. You know, those things.
Just dreaming.
Yeah, just dreaming about it. One thing I thought was pretty cool was asking about getting Q&A questions in advance during live streams. Because, I mean,
that's a huge one. Yeah.
No one likes me sitting here with my phone trying to find iTunes reviews because it slows the show down. But, you know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Having that level of organization will be helpful. And will actually make the shows feel a little bit more professional looking from a company that has that. They talk about the content roadmap a lot, which we'll definitely see that stuff coming out. And I'm trying to find the one that I was most looking for, and one that I know I asked Margaret about earlier. It was about the website. And
that was a good response. Yeah, there was I think she said the website, she gave an actual more realistic date. I think it was the end of this month.
Yes.
Here it is.
That it would come out. Yeah. Which is good because we kind of heard from Steven it would be, that the forums would be up pretty soon, and then it was next week, and we were all kind of waiting for the forums to come up, and then never came up, and then now, end of the month. All right, cool. We're not waiting around for it. That's when it's going to come.
I'm going to read her responses verbatim to the questions. When will the forums be up? And then what is going on with the website? So for the forums, currently we're working on a single sign-on solution, thank goodness, into the forums and the website. We do not have a final date when this will be available, but we are hoping within the next couple of weeks. This is a high priority for us, and we apologize for the inconvenience. Followed by, we are still working with the host, working on a host of current issues regarding the website. We've made considerable efforts, but hope to have them all resolved by the end of the month. Because I know that was a question I had brought up in one of the chats. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was the content creator chat. Just asking to get some information. She linked to this. But the idea of, I know they talked about whether or not all of our account stuff was there. Because, I know I'm going to have to go through my account and realize, did I get all the rewards? Did I not? I know there's some stuff still missing. I know there's a ton of referrals still missing. I'm sure anyone with a good number of referrals is still missing the majority of them. Actually, even people with just a handful are missing almost all of them. But that's still there. So I would definitely want to go through my account with a fine-tooth comb. Since the amount of money I threw at this game, I want to make sure it's all there. But I want to know, do I open up a ticket? Are you guys done? And then I can try to find it out. I don't want to be like, I don't have these items and get the response of, well, the website's still being worked on. Whenever they're done is when I'll go through and make sure I have everything and then deal with the team as needed. But I don't want to jump on that bandwagon too early because otherwise it's just bogging down their CS teams with needless tickets that don't really have a response yet. So it's good to see that. And I think that was really all it is. One of my favorite ones because of all the ire it posed on Reddit. Will we have the option of revealing armor? And not the crossbow of revealing. And also, well, I won't say that word.
Wait, revealing what?
Revealing armor, I'm just
reveal.
Armor
that question.
guys.
Yeah.
Sexy,
you like that?
Little nip slip there.
Yeah. Faux pas. Oh. Anyway, no. Are we going to be forced to pick one or the other? The answer was there will be a variety of gear that you'll be able to gear your character from a visual spectrum, but we will not utilize overly sexual armor as we're going for a more realistic armor visual. Thank all of the divines out there.
Yeah, because you've been very critical of their armor design up until this point, Aggelos. You've always wanted a more realistic kind of look, and right there, quote for the word right there, realistic look.
Yes. Going into, like I said, we've been playing BDO for a good bit. The thing that annoys me more than anything is the tramp armor. Yeah, the female armor just annoys me to no end. And I always link in our Discord the memes of the male armor versus the female armor of like the bikini armor and then the character stubbed with arrows like all over the place. And when I should have probably picked different armor. Yeah. I am so glad that's not going to be a thing.
I just realized something. They updated their store.
Yeah?
Yeah. Go check it out later. But the Ashes store is actually updated, and now you can repurchase all the, single items, and there's a lot more organization.
You mean my Elsa gear I can actually have? That's awesome.
Yeah. You can go check out your Elsa gear and more stuff. There's like before with the previous site, it was really strange. If you wanted to upgrade a package, you'd have to kind of go hunting down through like the little K, and then you'd go through another area. It's all like front and center now. As well as like the other options that you can add on from like I think like remember they gave us options that you could buy from the Intrepid packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is easy to see and purchase now, as opposed to. So, yeah, just check it out when you have a chance.
Right.
Yeah.
Final two questions, which I thought were pretty good, and this especially for our Oceanic players, because I know they've been having issues. They said, what is the status of getting OCE, Oceanic servers? US East is very laggy for us. It's oddly enough, I've had Oceanic players who played on US East and had no issues, so maybe it's your internet. Anyway, I mean, it's obviously not great, but they're still saying it was pretty good. US West servers were down, which were a bit better. Not really heard anything. Anyway, during testing phases, we won't have Oceanic servers until we hit beta for the MMO and live launch for APOC. Helpful. I mean, Oceanic servers. And this one's probably the most interesting. What kind of camera distance? Yes. Using for fights.
There you go. Yeah.
And they use the example of WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV. Closer to Final Fantasy XIV, we want people to have a wide range of view, especially since our battles will be very large. We want people to be able to visually access their surroundings.
I have no context for Final Fantasy XIV. I imagine based off that description, it's zoomed out quite far.
It's quite far. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes, it is.
So I'm guessing it'll give you the variable scale, right? The ability to zoom in and to zoom out based off your own preference. But why anyone would want to zoom in, except for immersion, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. I mean, it all depends on the building too. Like if you go into a building and you zoom out so far that you're clipping into the ceiling, that may be a problem.
I got you.
Well, hopefully they stop that with collision, right? But
you would hope, but I've seen games not do that. Atlas.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And if they're going to do a hybrid action combat system and you pull out your bow and it's action combat, you kind of need to zoom in real close to aim.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's specifically when you do a right mouse
click and zoom in,
right? It'll skip that into a zoom.
Yeah, interesting. Just be a boss and no scope it.
Like a boss.
Like alpha. There you go.
There you go.
There we go. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on into our discussion. Going back into gear progression once again, ladies and gentlemen, talking about gear. We're going to start off this whole discussion with a quote by Stephen Sharif. Ashes of Creation is all about providing many progression paths. The reason why we don't like the term endgame is because of the amount of progression that's available with the amount of diversity and player agency that impacts the world. What kind of we want in the weapon system and add an element of that as well. You can determine special effects that proc from currently to the combo system. You can determine ancillary effects that proc based on enchantment types. You can power stone weapons to add different either elemental types of damage and or energy that kind of play rock, paper, scissors with player defenses. And then you can skill tree out how these effects that they're granted. You can make them better. You can branch them off and into a different direction.
Remember how in the last podcast we talked about class balance and how it might just be so complicated that class balance might just be impossible? Everything you just said to me, all my brain was like, oh my God, how are we going to figure this out? What's going to be the best this? What's going to be the best that? Like, there's so much between the 64 classes, the enchanting, the crafting, the power stones, of this, that. It's crazy how much there is in this game.
I hope they go the
Somebody
route.
will.
Yeah.
Somebody will. You're right.
somebody
Someone will
right?
spreadsheet it. Someone will have a nice, beautiful Google Doc spreadsheet figuring it all out.
I'm really hoping that go ahead, try. I'm really hoping that it goes the route of Shadowbane where you can't, where you try all you might. There's always going to be a different take or way to play.
Yeah.
You know, that's just as viable depending on what. You're trying.
Hopefully, play style has a lot to do with it too. Absolutely.
I'm actually really curious. Going into gear progression, the idea of horizontal versus vertical.
Yep.
We do know one of the things that they're doing in the game is that weapons and armor types aren't really bound to class.
Yes. And you mentioned they're leveled up, right? There's a skill progression there within each of the weapons, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So is that skill progression vertical or horizontal? Do you get better at using a sword as you level up your sword skill? Or does it just give you more options to use your sword differently?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it.
Yeah, do the unlocks give you options but not necessarily power, or is it literally you're leveling up to a level 5, level 10, level 20 sword user, and you get more powerful using a sword during that progression?
I would assume that's how any of that would work. I would hope that's how it would work, as you're getting a certain efficiency with a weapon type. I do know that certain classes are going to have better efficiencies.
Yeah, the rogue's not going to be great with whatever a wizard uses as a weapon. You know what I mean? The wizard's naturally going to be better with wizard weapons as opposed to the rogue.
Right.
You can if you want
to. So here's my question: why not, or why?
They're stupid.
No. I mean, so what would be the limiting factor then on it? Would it be the class? Does the class get a bonus? Because theoretically, if it's a skill system and it's just 0 to 100 or whatever it may be. Then if a rogue picks up a staff, he gets it to 100, he should be ideally just as good with it than a mage.
Unless there's character passives that affect magical potency.
Right.
That would be the only thing if the mage had talents or abilities that made staffs better for the mage.
Yeah,
Right.
They have passives in the background that would work.
And how much of a power difference is that? How much of a power difference is the mage with 100 staff? We'll just pick 100. Versus a rogue with 100 staff. What's the difference in power with the staff there, based off of those class abilities?
So the reason I was actually asking that, you guys play Guild Wars 2, right?
Yeah.
Rogue with a staff is the Daredevil.
Yeah, but it almost becomes a bow staff instead later.
Rather than
not a magical staff. He doesn't use it pew pew.
He adapts it for a rogue use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really weird when he's doing it with what clearly looks like a magical staff. It's like, okay, if you hit something with that crystal ball at the end, that thing is going to shatter.
I don't see how a rogue is going to grab a spell book and then somehow make that into a rogue type.
He's going to beat you with it. Just sneaks up behind someone, just whacks him with a book.
No, better yet, just take the weapon, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, you open it, you close it, you disarm the opponent.
Yeah.
Or the old librarian trick. You catch people's fingers in it, like slam it shut on their fingers. They're like, ow, ow. And that's a disarm. So they drop their weapon.
Or does it become the throwing weapon? It just chucks books at you, knocks your feet out, and gives you a trip.
Wow.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see, right? Just how, a rogue using a book, a wizard using a two-handed great axe, right? These kinds of cross weapons that you normally wouldn't imagine, they're supposed to be able to use. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they'll even lock weapon progression. We'll stick with weapons because I have a few questions about armor, but like we said, we have about the weapon pass first. Let's talk about that. I'm curious if certain weapon paths will be locked out based on the class you're going in.
I thought they said all weapons for all classes.
And true, but I mean, you can use it, but does that necessarily mean... They've also said that certain weapons and certain classes will have abilities that favor certain other weapons. Look at the ranger, for instance. The bows are something that's like, well, you don't have to use a bow, but
yeah. So to me that rings true. So if you, for example, pick up a staff, you could get it to 100. You can swing like a boss with that thing, but you don't have any skills that can actually benefit from it or use it, right? Same thing with a bow. Anyone can use it, but you may not have any skills that you can actually use with it.
Right. Interesting. Weapon combo or weapon usability combo determines special effects that can proc. I wonder if they'll have multiple different ways. Again, they already talked about multiple trees for weapon pass, and when you're using them, I'm curious if you can actually pick a weapon and choose to make it more melee versus more magical or tanky or whatever the case may be.
I was going to say more DPS with the sword, more mitigation or tanking with the sword, go down different paths with a particular weapon.
Right. Ancillary effects proc based on enchantment types, dealing, that's fairly known. You put fire on your weapon, you're good to go. Let's talk a little bit about gear, equipable gear, which you could say weapons, but let's, for this case, make it armor, because this is what makes me think most about it. The one thing that when I think about armor and how to make it interesting is going back to ESO, any weapon, any armor for any class, certain armors had stats that really sort of worked better with certain play styles. Could you be a mage or a sorcerer with all plate? Yeah, and actually in PvP, that was pretty much the best thing you could do.
It was early on.
It still is.
It is now.
It still is.
It came back.
Oh
yeah,
it's
no,
back with a vengeance.
Well, it's because of how they.
I love full plate mage.
Full plate mage. It's full plate, sword, shield, everything. Like that's pretty much.
That was the first couple of months of ESO.
Yeah.
The tank mage never dies, man. The tank mage.
Well, that's the plan.
Because all the DPS will use all their resources trying to kill them, and then they're just like, well, I'm out of resources now. Time to die.
Yeah, I'm done.
When we saw in the Alpha Zero, we did see stats on gear. I'm curious if that's how they're going to make it. Like, will it be really come down to meta? If you're a DPS in ESO, you wore medium armor. If you were melee, because it affected stamina. Stamina affected your weapon damage. Now, that game was a little bit more dumbed down. It really only had health, stamina, magicka. There were some hidden stats. I shouldn't say that much. But mainly, you were either dealing... Your enchants were either health, stamina, or magicka. That was pretty much it. And those affected your base damage. I'm curious whether or not they're going to do something similar to that within here, where, okay, if I'm a tank, I put on my heavy chestplate, that really affects my defense and health. All right, sure. Mail affects my spirit. What do you need that for a tank? Well, that passively allows me to regenerate mana faster so I can cast defensive buffs. You can pick and choose. You could be an Iron Dreadnought in full plate, but then you're giving up everything else for insane mitigation. Like, are you going to be able to mix and match? And I wonder how much that's going to matter eventually. And it shifted a little bit within ESO, the 5-2-2 setup versus the 7-7 setup. It fluctuated really depending on the patch, but I think pretty much a year after development, it pretty much settled on a full 7-7. If you were a melee, you were all 7 pieces of leather. If you were a caster, all light. If you were a tank, all heavy.
So my question is, if they want to give us the ability to be a mage in full plate, is all full plate going to be strength and stamina for statistics and mitigation like you mentioned? Or are they going to give us full plate with intelligence and other type caster stats? Much like in World of Warcraft, sometimes early on, like really early on, plate would drop with intellect on it, and you're a warrior, and you're like, oh, this plate's kind of good, but it's got intellect, I need intellect. And then poor paladins were like, I need strength, I need intellect, I need everything. But eventually World of Warcraft went to a model where the piece would drop, and based on what class was wearing it, it would change the stats. So I'm curious to see which way Ashes is going to go. Are they just going to say plate equals strength and stamina? You're screwed if you're a mage. Are they going to give some pieces with intelligence, but it's a random drop? Who knows what happens? Or are the pieces going to shift based off who's wearing it and provide the stats for that class? I don't know which way they want to go.
I really hope they don't go with the WoW route. That really dumbed it down eventually.
The recent one where
Yeah.
it just changes based off who's wearing it. Yeah, that makes it way too simple.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, that was a knee-jerk reaction to. You guys remember that? It was a running joke that everything is hunter loot.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, that meme.
Yeah, it was from.
And that patch literally made everything hunter loot.
Literally.
Yeah.
Every melee weapon was a hunter weapon.
Yeah, it was a knee-jerk reaction to a rogue picking up. I think it was like a bow or a hand cannon or something like that, because it helped his stats.
Yeah, it was a stat stick.
More than it was a stat stick. But yeah, you're right. I hope they don't do that. That really dumbs things down.
So here's the question: do they go the one route where full plate is strength and stamina, and if you're a mage, you're getting strength and stamina, or are they dropping different kinds of plate for different kinds of classes, and then completely messing up and muddying up the loot pool?
And while we're not talking about crafting yet, I wonder if you can
yet.
craft it too. Well, we're going to talk.
choice,
Crafting has its
or
own
RPG.
progression, which we'll talk about in a later
Yeah.
time. But how much change does a crafted piece actually have?
Do you get the choice to craft intellect plate, or is it RNG? When you actually craft it, does it pop out with random stats and you get what you get? We don't know yet. That's curious.
Hopefully you can choose, but yeah.
That'd be great.
Muddy the loot. Yeah, my fear is that at least going back from what I seen in Alpha 0, all the gear, again, they only had like 6 pieces of gear, right? It was very early, but all the plate had the same stat choices. All the mail had the same stat choices. All the leather had the same stat choices.
And that really funnels the classes into the stereotypical armor they're supposed to wear. That kind of just shimmies them there. It shimmies the casters into cloth. It shimmies the rangers into leather. It doesn't give them much option.
It doesn't if they don't do stats correctly. And when I say that,
Don't do it correctly. Mess it up. Ruin it.
No.
Don't do
What
that.
I'm saying
Yeah,
is
don't
if they make
do
it
it
so
actually, or just don't do it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me finish the sentence first. Jeez, I'm just going to mute everybody. You know what? Hold on, I'm just going to mute all of
I
Discord.
didn't say anything.
No, Alpha Soul's good. Storms and Crowjack are just going to be muted the rest of this pod. No, what I'm saying is you have to make it so that every stat affects a character in a certain way. Other games made it so that if you were a warrior, if it wasn't health and stamina, you didn't care. It didn't affect you. Intelligence did nothing. There was nothing that it actually touched. Older games actually affected. Intelligence was good for warriors. You want to know why? It allowed you to level up your skills faster because you could retain more of that knowledge.
So much more in a Dungeons and Dragons old school RPG kind of way, where stats like charisma and intelligence were even useful to a fighter, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
They all have uses. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's what we're looking at. Modern games made it so that you only care about these stats, and that's it. You don't. If you're a rogue, it's dex and health, and that's it. And if it's anything else, we don't care. Whereas in the old D&D days, and we both know, or should be not both, but everyone knows that Steven is a massive Pathfinder player, so I'm sure he is looking at that and realizes that problem. Modern MMOs, whatever class you're at, all you care about is one stat, and that's it.
Yeah, your HP and then your primary stat.
And the other stats do nothing. But yeah, it would be neat. And that may affect the way you play, because then you're sitting there going, well, okay, let's take my fighter cleric, for instance. The melee with the cleric ability, so it heals. Maybe spirit helps that when on hit, I do a small heal. Okay, just
That's
a tiny
something
heal.
we haven't even thought about. The secondary classes can really change the kind of gear you might want.
Yeah. So let's say it's a tiny heal. Everyone has 100 hit points. I hit with my sword, and it heals anyone around me for 5. Well, if I put on some mail gear, it's now 7. It's not a lot, but
it's your choice.
it makes me stronger than someone who stacked all strength in that healing aspect. So adding in, as we said in the previous one during the class episode, the secondary stats, maybe that's where, maybe I'll put on some light armor because I'm a fighter mage.
Yes, I was
That's
just going to
what I
say,
like
going back
about-
to that example.
Oh, sorry. That's what I like about Neverwinter is you can play with those original D&D stats and modify your character based on those as well as everything else.
A mage is not going to want to wear plate, but you're right. A mage fighter or a mage tank probably would want to wear plate.
A battle mage
Depends what the
probably
plate
would.
is. Depends on what the plate is, right? Depends what powers that particular plate comes with. Right, they may, in like ESL, they have some plate that are specifically meant for magic, even though they're heavy plate.
Going up into what we said earlier, and this is actually, I love that they talked about this during the quote. I'm trying to find it here. You can add elemental types of damage or enter to play a rock, paper, scissors with player defenses. The types of armor protect against different types of damage. Plate is weak versus crushing damage.
No, they're doing that too?
Yeah.
The deeper we go with all this, there's just so much. And we're going right back to that first point of the conversation. There might just be so much that we can't properly even attempt to balance it or meta it all. Crazy.
That's my dream. That's
the
dream,
piercing
man.
damage, the slashing damage, the damage resistances to those, the secondary classes, on and on and on. It's insane.
Next quote we have from Jeffrey Bard. We are very likely going to have a rune system, and then we'll have the ability to sort. I hate the way they wrote this. We'll have the ability to sort enchant weapons outside of that too. That's not always going to be like vertical progression. Some of it's going to be giving up something to get something else, so maybe do a little less physical damage, but more magical damage, that kind of thing. Again, going back into the armor, that may matter.
Crafting, enchanting, runes. I'm excited.
So you can add power stones and runes to your gear to affect, and it'll be a give and take type system. Moving in to enchanting. I'm going to do my notes here, and we kind of have to move pretty quickly. This is going to be a slightly longer show than normal, but that's okay. Enchanting services are sold at player stalls. There isn't RNG in crafting, but there may be a small amount of RNG in enchanting. Over-enchanting items may come with potential risks that the item's destroyed. There are two types of enchantments on items, vertical and horizontal. Vertical progressions are power progression for a crafted item, more damage mitigation, added effects bonuses. Vertical enchantments also include these risks, or vertical enchantments include risk. Horizontal enchantments are more situational. For example, I'd like my sword to do force damage instead of holy damage because that monster I fight is incorporeal. This doesn't make the item more powerful, but instead more applicable to different situations and less so to others. This type of enchanting assumes no risk, just time and effort. Okay, for this enchantment system reminds me of BDO. It really does. The idea of just over-enchanting, getting it up to a certain power level may destroy an item. I love it.
I'm just picturing this crafted weapon that we've worked on for so long, and it's so powerful, and you over-enchant it, and it goes, and you want to flip your computer to the ground and smash it, and...
Hey,
man.
It's the luck of the dice.
I know, but...
that's part of when you build something, you craft it in real life. If you push it the wrong way, it's going to blow, right?
I'm not saying it's bad.
It's a good thing.
It's going to feel bad.
It will.
Great entertaining content. If you're a content creator, and your audience will love it, but I don't know.
No, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
I normally don't shout out chat, but I have to shout out Happy Hands on this one. He goes, enchantment! And all I can think of is that dwarf from Dragon Age.
I was thinking the same thing. I was just playing the game.
Enchantment?
Enchantment.
They need an NPC that does that. That's all he says.
Give us a way in this game to guarantee enchantments don't break. I don't care how expensive that item is, an in-game currency, in-game cold, whatever. It's rare to find. It's a rare drop from a boss. I don't care. If I've got a legendary weapon and I want to enchant this thing, I will spend what it takes to make sure it don't break.
And see, and that's just it. We were talking about in the pre-show a little bit, because we've been playing BDO. One of the things that people either love or hate, and while it's mostly a hated thing because of how expensive it is in Black Desert Online, I actually love the enchantment system, because every time you try to enchant it, certain items will break. When you try to do jewelry, I think there's a chance of losing everything you put into it, but weapons generally don't. But every time you fail, you lose durability, and then you have to farm more of the weapons to repair it. I like the idea of enchanting and making it powerful.
I don't mind the
like
durability lost. I'm just afraid of the destruction.
Well,
you enchanted, it fails, and it breaks.
And there were
As long
items
as that
in
way
BDO
that it doesn't. I'm okay with it.
Right. And in BDO, there was an item, I can't remember if it's Capris stones or Kronstones. I think maybe it's Kronstones early on and Capris later. But those were items that would essentially be insurance that you didn't break an item. Kronstone. Snack Pack helped me out there with Kronstone. That make you didn't break an item, but it's
like a State Farm of enchanting.
Essentially.
State Farm, there you go.
Kronstone's on your
it's not cheap
side.
to get.
It would allow you to do that, but they were insanely expensive. They were rare to drop.
Fine. That's fine. You've got this amazing thing. You don't want to risk it. You spend the money to do it. The in-game money. I keep saying that. The in-game gold.
Right.
You don't want a method to drop $5 to guarantee an enchant. You don't want to do that.
No, and I don't think that was ever an issue here within that. But I actually love the idea of the vertical enchants, being able to switch things back and around and be able to change your weapon based on the situation. So there we go. I'm fighting Crowjack, and I see he's that full mage plate tank. I'm going to mace with essentially void damage in
extra
ESO.
Crushing damage.
Extra crushing damage so that I could just rip him apart because I know he has nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As if I'd have nothing else.
I know.
But
He's
it's
stuck in his
dependent on
ways, though.
Cosmetics as well, right? If they're going to be able to cover your armor with cosmetics, then you can't make that choice.
That's actually a fantastic question. If I'm a light cloth wearer and my cosmetic makes me look like a full plate dude, can they do that?
Generally, yes, through the combat log.
Yes. Yeah.
You could look at the combat log and go, huh, if you're attacking someone and it goes, oh, they've had, 100 damage plus 0. Well, then apparently whatever item he's using is what I'm suited for.
But that's
Plus
an advantage.
1. Oh, he's wearing cloth and it's weak towards this. Or negative whatever. Oh, well, clearly he has something
But your
else.
opponent won't know until they smack you, giving you a small
Sure.
combat advantage of knowledge using a cosmetic you purchased in the store for money.
So cosmetics are pay to win at that point?
In that particular situation, yeah. It gives you a slight advantage in combat. That's kind of interesting. Never thought about that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping maybe it's just cloth cosmetics on cloth armor, so you don't have that kind of confusion.
And that's actually really funny because that exact same question was brought up in ESO when they added costumes. Everyone was running around in the wedding dress, and there was a reason for it. Both it was a troll.
What? Who knows?
It was a troll, but it was also because you couldn't tell what kind of armor they were because you did play differently against people in you didn't want to blow your entire energy load on a tank mage because you're not going to kill them. You whittle them down. That's how you play against that. But that's how they hit it. And that pay to win question came up quite a bit, was if you can change your appearance completely, I don't know how to play against you anymore.
Yeah, it's you're missing information. You're at an information disadvantage. In this game, we're talking about weapons having extra damage against specific types of armor, crushing damage, piercing damage, etc. That's a tactical advantage. And if you can confuse your information for your opponent, that's a method of pay to win in an indirect but kind of direct way.
Right.
So I'm hoping it's cloth enchants on cloth armor and plate enchants on plate armor, and you can still look at a person and go, okay, he's wearing plate, he's wearing leather, whatever.
Finally, power creep. Always a scary thing when you're dealing with a game with vertical progression. This is a quote from Steven Sharif once again. Power creep is a balance issue. When it comes to gear progression specifically, the idea is to create an open market that is not heavily dependent on soulbound items. And having many item sinks and gold sinks within the economy that allows for potential degradation and loss of assets within that closed economy. Again, I'll say BDO did this really great. And not introduce items from the marketplace that companies put in from a pay-to-win perspective or from a pay-to-convenience perspective that undermines the economy players have built. That is a huge mistake that companies have made in the past and leads to the imbalancing of what designers may have actually balanced well. Power creep. Honestly, the idea of power creep, like you said, if nothing is soulbound or very few things are soulbound, it does kind of alleviate that because you can still buy the gear fairly easily with in-game means.
But when we're talking about power creep, are we not talking about damage numbers and HP numbers growing at a scale. So all that talk about soulbound or stuff like that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of how much damage you're dealing. It's basically every time you release an expansion and the damage numbers go up and stuff like that, right?
Well, and the power creep could also appeal to new players and old players or players who are returning.
And how quickly they get up to speed and how many people in the world have so much power. Okay, I was thinking about it from a different perspective.
Different ways of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple ways you can look at power creep. But when he says power creep being a balance issue, say I stop playing for a few months. I come back. I had the best gear. It's probably not going to happen, but let's just say. I had the best gear at the time. I come back, and they've added in essentially WildStar level difficult raids.
Another tier of rating.
Another tier of rating that's insanely hard to get into, and I have to go through multiple tiers of rating to get to it. I'm at a massive disadvantage to anyone who is in the current tier of rating.
However, because items are not soulbound, you may be able to spend some of the money you've earned in game to buy items from the auction house or from players to get caught up quicker.
And BDO offers that. Nothing is soulbound in BDO. After you use a weapon, you could sell it back.
Interesting.
Now, again, that's where you start getting, as he said, weapon sinks, or item sinks and gold sinks. There needs to be ways of things to be destroyed.
You don't want to flood the market with all this stuff.
And I see people say BDO has bound items. It does in most cases, but not gear. Or mostly are not.
Incentivizing crafting professions to break down weapons for the materials necessary to craft the next tier of gear.
That will also help. I think inherently though, with the with item drop as well as durability loss, it should be inherently enough to kind of, sink items. If you get what I mean.
The other thing is the fear in other games about how when you're playing, people stop doing older content. You need to make content viable the entire way through. Other games and the survival genre has been really great with this, needing lower level materials to make higher level materials.
Yeah. Yes, there are times when playing, for example, World of Warcraft, again, that's my experience here, where low level mats to get you to a point to help you progress your crafting up to the highest levels were so scarce because no one was doing that content. They were extraordinarily expensive to level up those lower levels. You almost would rather just go out and get the mats yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 did this later on too. Eventually it got to the point where when you were selling like medium level armor, and because if you looked at the spectrum, the beginning materials and the high-end materials were in such high supply because most people made a lot of characters and didn't really level them up, and high-level characters. So you couldn't even give away the high-level mats and the low-level mats. Those mid-tier mats, the 30 to 60 range, where not a lot of people sat, were going for a premium. And they saw that. Now, eventually what happened was they started realizing, well, in that game they didn't really have gear progression, but they did start adding ascended weapons. But the thing that made it the most interesting was to make like the big end pieces, you needed hundreds of the low end. Like to make Deldrimor steel, you needed full stacks of iron, steel, pretty much every level of material to make it.
Make sure that later progression uses earlier progression so earlier progression doesn't fall to the wayside and become useless.
Yeah. And that will actually keep people doing older raids too, because you need those items in order to continue progressing even in the higher end items. So there won't ever become a time where you're sitting there. This happened in BC or even very vanilla. You're sitting there at Karzan level rating, but people are already at Black Temple, but you can't be brought into Black Temple because your gear level's not up and no one's doing Karzan, no one's doing whatever the next one, Sunken Cavern. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I know where it's in. It's in the Zanga Marsh, but anyway, that's regardless of that. But no one was doing those raids anymore because everyone had already moved on who had continued to play. So making sure everything is still relevant in some use is important for power creep.
Yeah, and I also think one of the things I don't like about ESO when they changed, I don't know, a year or so ago, is when they went to you see whatever mats are your level at, right? It used to be very scarce to get high level mats, but now whatever level you're at, that's the mat you see.
Oh,
so regardless of zone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
regardless of zone. Like, so I have a couple lower level characters I keep just for farming lower level mats. I just run them around where I know they are because my high level, he can't see it. He gets the high level mat.
Can't get it. Yeah.
That, from an immersion perspective, and you guys know I'm not into immersion, that makes no sense. How your high level character sees this material, but your low level character does not see that material. It doesn't exist in that spot. Something else does.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense in that, but I mean, the way that they redesigned the world, it does make sense in that thing. And they redesigned one Tamriel as everything is levelable everywhere, right?
Right. But
so from a gameplay perspective, sure.
I really like One Tamriel, a different game, but I really like it. I started like 2 months before that, and then when it switched, I loved it. But the whole map discussion, though, to me, it forced scarcity when you had somebody they had to go to a particular area to get it, right? You had to go to Craglorn to get something specific. You couldn't get it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Depends how they play it on this one, though.
Yeah, you should know that in that zone, there's lots of that thing. This frost-related herb is in this frost-related zone, and you know to go there to get that frost herb. It should be that way. It should.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
Anyway, guys, I think that's going to be the end of this discussion. Again, if you are watching us live on twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network, be sure to stick around for the post show because that's always a lot of fun. We talk about a little bit everything under the sun. The after party is the party. That's what it is. And of course, if you are supporting us over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network, you will have access to the recorded video directly afterwards. I want to thank my amazing co-host, Stormzord from Digital Piper Studios, Alpha Soul from _Alpha_Soul. You can follow all of his videos. He's been doing an amazing Ashes of Creation news recap each and every week. And of course, Crowjack, he does everything. Videos, streams, Snapchats me at night. It's really weird and sometimes...
You've not Snapchatted me. That's a lie.
And of course, you can follow me in the description below. There will be links for everything down there in the bottom of the podcast. And of course, if you want to follow everything we do, head on over to DungeonCrawlerNetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon program, patreon.com/DungeonCrawlerNetwork. If you want to help support the show, you can also leave us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know we're a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we will see you next time.